everything does follow me print, secure printing, basic reporting, all of those bits and pieces. It's the industry standard. However, for us, it's all around that personalisation for those end users. It's how you can customise those products to be almost like your iPhone for the individual users, for that photocopier, where they can then create their own personalised workflows.
Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Fernandes, CEO of Quocirca, and this series is brought to you in collaboration with Microsoft Universal Print. Today I'm joined by Mark Asbridge from MyQ, and we will be hearing about MyQ's continued growth and how customer needs are evolving in the world of print and capture. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Hi, Louella. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Before we dive into the conversation and hear more about what MyQ is doing at the moment, and also your views on customer needs and adoption around on-premise and cloud print, can we start with an introduction? If you could tell us a bit about your career history and your role at MyQ.
Yeah, so my career history within the print industry has been around about 20 years of a mixture of IT and print. So I started my career working in IT for over 5 years, which gave me that really good background of the digital industry. From that, I then moved over to an OEM. I actually started in as a hardware engineer, which was great because it really got me into the crux of how photocopiers work, meeting lots of clients, meeting lots of people. From there, I then moved into an independent reseller, one of the largest in the UK, and we then resold multi-brands of manufacturers. This also then brought me into the horizon of multiple software solutions, and it gave me that good background. So from there, I then moved into MyQ at the end of last year. And my role at MyQ is bringing all of that technical, that IT background, engineering, multi-manufacturers, multi-software solutions, and how we can then progress the product to become into the future. So I'm looking after our areas of our marketing, I'm working with our product management teams, I'm working with our sales teams. I'm kind of a central point of all of our teams to work together so we can kind of drive the product and lead the market.
Could you tell us a bit more about MyQ's current sort of positioning in the market and also how much it's grown over recent years? Because I know it's expanded quite significantly.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually, because when I first joined, I didn't realize the sort of size of what MyQ was. When I first sort of come from the independent reseller I worked at, it was, I knew the teams and I knew the people that I met. But when I started doing the introductions into all of the regions that we cover, over 11 territories around the world now, we actually had at that particular point 120 staff. Now, we've recently done the updates of that PowerPoint presentation, and now we're 140 staff. So in literally 6 months of me being at the company, we've grown rapidly already. So we're always opening up new territories, expanding out, and recently we expanded out into the APAC region, and we have an appointed business development manager in Japan.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I attended, I think it was a couple of years ago, MyQ did their sort of 30th anniversary event, and it was really interesting to appreciate the full extent of MyQ's capabilities and the size of its business. So it's really encouraging to hear that, it's continued to grow since then. So in terms of the MyQ product and platform, I know MyQ has always been very focused on the on-prem environment with MyQ X, and then it launched MyQ Roger for the cloud print market. I'd be really interested to hear your views on what you're seeing in terms of customer adoption, sort of on-prem versus cloud, and the direction that MyQ is taking in both those areas.
Absolutely. It's a really interesting question, and a lot of people ask me that on a regular basis, is what's people doing? Where are they going? What are they changing? What is the new norm as such? And it varies so much. Now, I had quite an opinion when I look at just from the UK point, because people are trying to rapidly move into the cloud. If you look at like the Nordics, again, they are really driving to that cloud first or that cloud only infrastructure. But it does depend on the regions that you start talking to, because they all have a slightly different opinion of maybe what is cloud, because you talk to some people and they talk cloud is private cloud. So they've still got servers, they've still got infrastructure, but they don't have that full resilience on a pure public cloud environment. So it's kind of an interesting question, and it's always, I end up asking people more questions when they say that they're moving to the cloud. what are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? And we then have this very much of a discovery conversations around what their end goals are. And the beauty from a MyCube aspect is we have both options available to us. So we have the options to go pure public cloud with our MyQ Roger platform. And recently we've had over 1 million downloads of our app in our Google Play Store. So we're getting a lot of onboarding of that product from going pure public cloud, but then also we're still quite investing in our on-prem product, but looking at how we can adapt that into a native cloud connecting platform, as well as looking at our central management of hosting that in cloud environments, and then maybe a little sneak peek into the future of how products can be joined together to make the incredibly hybrid and incredibly flexible environment.
What we're seeing in the market is a very different approach in terms of enterprise requirements for cloud and SMB requirements. And often some of the barriers to adoption around cloud for enterprises are security, data sovereignty, performance, availability. Could you share what you're seeing in terms of your customers, enterprises versus SMBs, and perhaps what's moving them in a certain direction?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think your smaller SMBs are adopting cloud quicker, purely from the fact that for them to have the sort of infrastructure, the teams to manage their environments, especially when data protection and security vulnerabilities are so paramount these days, it's harder for them to have all of those skills and expertise in-house. So for those users and those companies, we are finding them adopting that cloud environment much quicker, because it means they're not reliant on themselves to protect. They're using the expertise of the industries like MyQ to offer them a cloud software solutions, and then we're then meeting all their security requirements on their behalf. So thereby, it's much easier and much quicker for them to rapidly expand and deploy printing devices. However, you look at that from an enterprise point of view, well, they've got those expertise, they have those infrastructures, but also what's really important is they have a certain set of requirements on what they want to do within their print environment. And I want to say print environment, I mean print, scan, manage, document workflow, everything that they want to do. And that's at the point where for them going native cloud isn't necessarily the best bet, because they then have to lose some of their features and some of their functionalities to gain that process. And again, that's where we have that conversation with them to understand what is it they're trying to achieve. But the enterprise, we're definitely seeing them still staying in this hybrid private cloud, self-managed platform. Because again, when they start talking about resilience and reliability, we all know what's happened in the past with certain services going offline for a period of time and the kind of impact that has to the industry when you're solely reliant on the cloud.
Yes, and I think that's a really great point. One of the other sort of barriers to adoption we see is around performance and availability, and hybrid cloud seems the best of both worlds, doesn't it, in terms of protecting data if you need that security, but also cloud provides some flexibility and scalability for companies who are looking to optimize costs. But I think it's been interesting because I think since the pandemic, there was that kind of rush to the cloud, and we're seeing some large enterprises now kind of moving slightly back to perhaps on-premise environments or private cloud. And I don't know if that's something you're seeing with some of your customers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we really are starting to see that kind of the question in people's eyes, where they sort of, as you already said, COVID times, it was just this rapid, straight in cloud. But then that was the world that we lived in, where we needed to rapidly adopt cloud because people weren't in the office and they had to make this big change. And I think that forced a lot of decisions really, really quickly. And now, post-COVID, things are starting to settle down, and we're all now going, well, actually, is that the right process? Is that cost effective? Because obviously cloud services do cost a lot of money. You're paying for that resilience, you're paying for that industry. It adds up, and I think those prices are but only increasing. And that's where people are reviewing their processes and saying, well, actually, can we host certain features and functionalities of this local or in this sort of private cloud? So for us, it's very much looking at that focus to say, how can we utilize our products and services, but supporting that future of this whole hybrid moving environment? So I really need like a little mystic globe where I can kind of start predicting how that's going to look for the future. But for us, it's understanding that enterprise kind of balancing and then making sure we meet those expectations for the future.
What are you seeing in terms of that hybrid cloud, hybrid work environment? What are you seeing in terms of organizations and print volumes? Because I guess with MyQ, you track and monitor a lot of data around print volume usage and scan usage as well. And are you seeing that, potentially the return to the office is starting to see print volumes recover, or has it reached a plateau where this is the new normal around print volumes and you're focused more on workflow and capture?
Again, depends on the customers. If you look at the education market, they print. Education always prints, and they really have returned back to normal stats of printing. But that's because in a school environment, having that physical pieces of paper is so important to education. Whereas when you look at the commercial world, things have adapted, things have changed. So there has been a reduction in that. And we are seeing that increase in scanning because as people are moving more to a digital based system, having legacy archiving or having legacy archive of documents on site is either costly for them, where they're having to pay for the storage, or it's just inefficient to have some paperwork in a lever arch folder. So we're starting to see people utilize our platforms to be able to digitize and scan and store those documents. So we're definitely seeing an increase in that area.
Yeah, we'll come back to that later in the conversation because I know MyQ's got some really interesting technology and integration around scanning. I wanted to ask you about Microsoft Universal Print and how you're integrating with that. And I'm just curious as to what you're seeing in terms of the need to have that kind of platform in place and how MyQ would work in terms of integration with Microsoft's platform.
Yeah, so we've actually launched Microsoft Universal Print Connector, I think almost when it was launched to market must have been about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm sure it was pre-COVID. Initially, there wasn't much of an uptake on the product, but Microsoft had changed their licensing and changed some of their processes of recent. And we're now starting to see that as a much more of an uptake. Now, there's two areas that I see universal print that's been taken on board. My first example is I always like to call them my road warriors, people that are always traveling, they're on the road, salespeople, accountants, those sort of people that are with a laptop anywhere in the country. And they want to be able to print quickly, efficiently, and securely. And for those users, that works really very well, where they can just natively connect from the print queue to be automatically deployed out to them. It makes it really efficient and a really secure method. Then you have the alternative options and what is being quite apparent to market at the moment with Windows protected print. Now, Windows protected print in the market is probably one of the biggest changes into the printing world at the moment, and I think there's a lot of nervous people out there. We're quite fortunate for MyQ because of the fact that with Universal Print, we already support IPPS. So when we were initially reading those articles, it was brilliant for us because we were already supported. But then it's an alternative way for those users to print because obviously it's already a supported platform. We already integrate into the services. So you can print natively through that into our MyQ platforms, thereby already supporting it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think WPP is going to have a real impact on how organizations manage their print environment and actually print, because obviously it's stopping the native print drivers and sort of including it all in the Microsoft new printing subsystem. And I think there's a real question mark about how it's going to support legacy devices. And, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because Microsoft is so critical to printing. We don't really sort of often appreciate something that we don't really think about, but they've actually completely reinvented that whole printing subsystem.
I completely understand their reasonings and the whys of their doing it. And when people started questioning it to me, going back when it was first launched, my immediate reaction was, well, they did it before with hardware items in laptops. Previously, you used to have an individual driver per graphics card, per individual cards. Nowadays, it's built in and it's native. So it's a big shock to the print world. I always tend to say the print world is a little bit behind the rest of the IT world. But it's a change that is really required for security. And today's world of security is number one.
In terms of scanning, sort of coming back to scanning workflows, and you mentioned some of the capabilities MyQ has. Can you talk a bit about, firstly, what capabilities you have and how perhaps AI is part of that, and also what customer uptake you're seeing in terms of those kind of scan capabilities?
Yeah, so in our most recent release of the MyQ Roger platform, we've actually now integrated that into a ChatGPT. What that now means is that users can subscribe to a subscription, a part of their scanning processes, and they can use this native AI engine to pass data backwards and forwards for that either OCR conversions or that data extraction and asking it questions based on the processes. So for our cloud, that's our first sort of introduction into our AI. So on our MyQ X, our on-prem software solution, we've always had some OCR capabilities. That's either using the integrated Tesseract engine, or we also have the capabilities to output it to any other OCR engine. So we can output it into various methods to kind of extract and capture data. But then equally, from day one of MyQX, we've had this advanced scanning workflow processes where we can really get the system to ask us any question. We can get it to ask drop-down list parameters. So a lot of the time, when we start looking at scanning workflows, and it depends on the industry, but sometimes keeping simple works really well. There's sometimes no need to go into AI. And I don't know AI is really in the market at the moment, but sometimes a simple workflow meets the customer's requirements. It's quick and it's efficient and it meets what they're after. So what we can do within the MyQX platform is we can ask a variety of questions, a part of a workflow action, all within product, all within the standardized licensings to then output it to where the appropriate destination is.
And in terms of the scan capability, so we've talked about a bit about the industry and print volumes declining, and obviously it does vary by region and sector, and scan volumes increasing. Do you think there's an opportunity for cost per scan to really take off? You know, I think it is a competitive market, and it may be not something that suits every customer and even channel partner, but I'll be curious as to your views and what you're seeing in the market.
It's a really hard shift, this one, especially from the UK market. There is a lot of resellers, independent resellers, and obviously manufacturers within certain sectors, certain markets. So it's always a tough one. I think we just need everybody to get together and agree on the 1st of April, we're all going to charge for scanning. That'll be a lot more efficient. But it's something I think that will come eventually, because as you see the decline in print volume and how powerful manufacturer devices are for scanning, you are starting to see this sort of shift of more scans and lower print volume. And I think that's where these scanning capabilities can come into place. Now, I think it won't just be native scanning, just scan to email, scan to folder, but it's more around how we can make that a bit more intelligent. And this is where I'd like to see my mystical ball, the future of how we're going to sort of start progressing things. And that's where I think we'll almost bring this AI to the many, I think is a phrase we always like to use. And it's how we can then integrate these processes and streamline these for customers. And I think that, to me, is where you can add services, you can add revenue, because you're not just charging them for something that they've always done. What you can then start charging them for is things that they haven't been able to do, or they haven't got the skill sets to set up and configure. And I think that's really, for me, is where added value can come to the products on a cost per subscription, on volume of some AI-based processes.
Yes, and it seems a natural transition, doesn't it, for many channel partners and even OEMs and ISVs like MyQ, because as organisations are reducing their print volumes and they're increasing scan, then there's an opportunity to create new business models, and that's really, channel partners and so need to think about diversified revenue streams. But like you say, it's there's no standardization at the moment in the market. It's very fragmented in terms of approach. So I think the coming year will be very interesting in terms of how vendors actually create propositions around scanning, because we're starting to see more solutions around per scan, and particularly with hyperscalers like Microsoft and Google and even AWS, they've got document intelligence within their cloud platform. So I think it is a natural progression. In terms of AI, we've talked a bit about the future, what's next for the industry. Is there anything in particular that you think will really be key to the industry this year, and perhaps, what's next for MyQ in terms of its product roadmap?
When we look at AI for the future, and certain areas that we're personally working on, so we always have two ways of looking at it: is utilizing AI internally and utilizing AI within products and externally. So we've got a number of features that we're utilizing already, and not what a lot of our customers are already aware of. So we are spending a lot of time on our documentation, because documentation is really, really key to any product. But when you get a big resource of documentation, sometimes it becomes difficult to find the exact things that you're looking for. So what we've done is we've integrated an AI chatbot into all of our documentation. So what that basically means is you can go into the engine, you can open up the chatbot, you can start searching for a particular area or a configuration, or you can ask it, does it do certain features or functionalities? And it gives you all of that information back really, really quickly. So we're trying to utilize it to make our users' lives really easy when they're using the products, but actually how to find how to set it up in the first place. Then obviously I mentioned that we've integrated into MyQ Roger, where we can actually link into that AI OCR part, and then we'll be also linking into other third-party scan engines and utilizing and looking for the future for us for our own built-in AI engine.
AI is just such a rapidly changing landscape, isn't it? And I think it's great to see that MyQ has already been adopting AI within its products for some time. And on that point, really, in terms of just ending with some, I guess, key takeaways for the audience to understand, perhaps, what would you say are the key differentiators for MyQ? Because we see the market is quite, as I mentioned before, quite fragmented on both the cloud and on-premise side. And there's a lot of print management solutions in the market. And as you mentioned, MyQ have got this approach where they can support on-prem and cloud through two different platforms. But be curious as to, what are the key differentiators and how you're positioning MyQ specifically.
For MyQ, absolutely, we've got many differentiators. Now, it's always difficult in the market when we start talking about print management to start off with, because everything does follow me print, secure printing, basic reporting, all of those bits and pieces. It's the industry standard. However, for us, it's all around that personalization for those end users. It's how you can customize those products to be almost like your iPhone for the individual users, for that photocopier, where they can create their own personalized workflows, where they can edit them on the screen themselves, so they can pin their own favorite actions. It's all around that personalization for those end users. So I always say to partners and to customers when I do those discovery conversations, what do you do? When you go up to that copier, how do you interact with it? Where do you send those files to? And what we're able to do is bespoke those screens directly to those features and those functionalities. The idea is the user pushes maybe one, maybe two buttons at a maximum, and they're gone, and they're left the photocopier. So for us, our key differentiator is how easy we can make those solutions work, how easy we can make it to interact, because at the end of the day, we want the customers to be really happy that they put in a print management software solution rather than just looking at it as another way of slowing them down. So we come away from our customers with a really positive, really happy environments where this complete personalized environment for them is.
Yeah, so very much focused on that customized, personalized user experience. And, ultimately it's a vendor agnostic platform. So you have consistent user experience, I assume, across multi-vendor environments.
Yeah, absolutely. So MyQ currently has 10 multi-vendor supported platforms. We have a consistent feel across all of the manufacturers. And then with our new 10.2 releases, that's even consistently making all the buttons incredibly more similar. The whole experience from MyQ is you should be able to move from any brand, any manufacturer, and it will have that same consistent feel to those end users, even to the fact where we can embed copy scan tiles directly into the product. So it's giving you that whole user experience. So I always say to users, with MyQ, you can do 80 to 90% of your standard features all within the MyQ product. It's only when you start wanting to use those booklet makings, those advanced features, those advanced functionalities, that's where you still need to use those native device. But we are still growing our manufacturers. We do have a number of other manufacturers reaching out to us and asking us to integrate into their hardware, and really looking at how we can expand our integrations, not only in the larger A3 devices, but also looking at their smaller A4 devices. So there's a lot to come for the future.
Yeah, no, that's great. And is there anything else you wanted to share in terms of what you see in the market for MyQ in particular?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things that are going to change in the market is very much looking from a governance point of view, especially around tenders. So we're starting to look to see more requirements for social, economic, as well as certain regulations around disability acts. So one of the things that we've adopted very early on is the WCAG AA rated. So this is all for visual impairment and how our products can integrate. So differences of like high contrast modes, keyboard readers, all these bits and pieces that we've integrated in. So through the European Union, I can see that really advancing quite quickly. And for MyQ, it's great because we're already supporting it and have a number of use cases for exactly that.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. It's quite something that, I wasn't aware of that MyQ does. So, thank you for sharing that. And, I think just on the point of ESG and sustainability, I think print management solutions like MyQ are going to be quite key coming forward because organisations need more transparency around the data and reporting around their print environment. I'm not sure if that's something that you're seeing, that the platform is being used for those analytics so that they can report on carbon footprint or paper usage and help actually achieve their sustainability goals.
No, I think the one that people don't think about the most is the deleted pages. And that's the one I see asked for the most times because it's the number of pages that have been deleted out of the system that most ESG reports are requiring, because that's a tangible number that you can say, because you had this print management system, this many pages was deleted. So in the ESG market, that makes quite a differentiator.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think that's ultimately the direction that the market is going, even though there's different things happening at the moment in the US around ESG. I think ultimately in Europe, there's still the regulations and the need to achieve sustainability goals because it does ultimately help businesses reduce costs and improve efficiency as well. And I think the print environment is, still open to optimization and reducing cost. And print management solutions like MyQ are really the foundation of analysing and controlling that. So I do really appreciate you taking the time to join me today, Mark. It's been a really interesting conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really enjoyed it today.
Thank you for joining today's episode of In the Spotlight with QuoCirca. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.